We have some updated information late today on the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. I'll give that to you in about 3 minutes. But first, a couple things that struck me over the course of the last 2 days. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. Chris is on vacation this week. He'll be back, I think, next week and filling in for Casey Bartholomew. And Casey will be off visiting with his wife, Carrie Underwood, somewhere on vacation. So I'll be filling in the next couple weeks, you and I. First and foremost is the thing that sticks out to me is Syrian rebels. They overtook the country, ending the reign of dictator Bashar al-Assad. Rebel forces moved in and pushed the dictator and his regime out with almost no pushback at all. And by all accounts, this move and what happened over the course of the weekend and still going on today will redraw the Middle East map. Assad fled to Moscow. This is the important point. Because what I do is I give you my story is I just follow the news, read it, I watch it, I listen to it, pay attention to it, I process it, multiple assets, multiple channels and networks, and then I formulate an opinion. And I get a chance to share it with you. And to me, the story that is interesting to me is that Assad fled to Moscow and claimed political asylum. So Putin gave him political asylum in Russia. It's right now, Syria is very unstable. It's an area of the world that's very unstable. And the challenge with it is it borders Iraq, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon. It's near the Mediterranean Sea. It's a strategic point in that area, in the Middle East. And it's a story you got to keep an eye on and watch, because when I tell you the other countries in the borders, Iraq, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, you don't have to be a brilliant genius to understand that is a very volatile area of the world. And my thought on this is a couple quick ones, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, a little more later. Other than being an unstable area of the world, you got to realize that Russia and China have interests in that region, which is why Assad went to Moscow for asylum. One of the questions I have to ask myself, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm really not. I just have to read a lot. I'm that guy that was a C student. You know, I was never an A student. I was a C student because I was just more street smart than book smart. But the street smart of me says, how does this impact the Ukraine-Russia conflict? And I find it interesting that all the events in the world going on right now are during a transition of government. And by all accounts, you're seeing, it just kind of feels to me like Trump is in office, even though he's not, and Biden's acquiesced to that. You know what? Every week that goes by, it seems like the world just gets a little more less stable, leaving President Trump with additional challenges and challenges that his predecessors just have never had to deal with. It's a whole new world. And it also feels to me like, and again, we'll talk about this later, it feels to me like the events in the world right now are lining up like we're headed towards a larger conflict. I don't want to call it World War III, but it kind of feels a little bit like that, with the conflict with these countries these countries I'm talking about on one side or another, and trying to create alliances. And it's real. I always say, is it something or is it not something? Is it something or is it nothing? This is something. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's going to end. It's a little disconcerting. It's a little scary. It has a feel of something bigger than what we see on our news feed today. And it's something that Trump's going to have to deal with. And it's going to be an interesting scenario on what happens there. I like his comment today that he said many times, it's not our fight. Well, guess what? It's not our fight right now, but that's not to say it doesn't become our fight. The second story today that sticks out, again, news on United Healthcare coming up in about 2 minutes. The second story that sticks out is the New York jury in the Daniel Penny case on a New York subway found him not guilty today of any criminal wrongdoing. The demonstrators outside the courthouse protests the verdict, saying it was an indictment of a broken mental health care system that is failing to protect a vulnerable 30-something-year-old man. This story is the latest story that the media and the liberal elites are using to race bait. They're making it a white man killing a black man on a public transportation system, arguing it's a case of white versus black, privileged versus poor, mentally strong versus mentally weak. They're making it class politics, and I don't like that. And I think Penny, we'll talk about it later, but I'm glad that Penny was acquitted. And it's always interesting to watch what juries do. And I've always said many times, no matter what side of the argument you're on there, when a jury speaks, you have to respect that. And what I always say is, if you're going to have an opinion about what a jury does, and you've never served in a jury, and you've called off of jury, you do everything you can to get out of jury duty, shame on you. Shame on you. I've been called to jury duty once. I've done it, and I'd do it all over again, and I'm sure I'll get it all over again. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. Back to the latest news, breaking news tonight, and that is the what the news is calling, quote unquote, the strong person of interest. I always find that interesting. Why don't they say the accused killer? Everywhere I go, up and down the dial, I'm seeing and hearing strong person of interest. Well, he's under arrest. The manhunt for the killer of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was taken into custody a few hours ago in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's about, I think, 250 miles or so west. I think I saw that 250 miles west of New York. Well, the individual identified as the killer, accused killer, is 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. And when you open up your X, or formerly known as Twitter feed, you'll see that's one of the things that's trending. It's amazing what's trending across X. Luigi Mangione, free him. He is being hailed as a civil rights kind of guy in favor of all bad things about health insurance. He's 26 years old. Arrested on gun charges after being spotted inside a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's 280 miles west of New York City. Police say he was found with a ghost gun, possibly made with a 3D printer, and a suppressor like the one that was used to kill CEO Brian Thompson. Also found on him, on his person, were fake IDs, multiple ones, and a handwritten manifesto. Now, authorities hope that the evidence will lead them to some kind of a motive and also a conviction. Police say they also found a 3.5-page document expressing ill will towards corporate America. Now, I want you to think about that. This is a guy that was born and raised in Maryland, last known address in Hawaii. He was valedictorian at an all-boys private school. By the way, that all-boys private school, I'd look it up. Tuition runs as high as $38,000 a year. $38,000 a year for an all-boys school. He went on the University of Pennsylvania. Everything I read says he graduated in 2020 with a bachelor's and then a master's in computer science. Fraternity that he was in confirmed he was a member. Now, investigators are combing through all the online posts, lots of them. And, remember, it's a generational thing. At that age, they're posting everything across things like TikTok. I want to tell you a little bit about what some of the things said and the message it conveys. What sticks out to me about that case is a couple things. Wealthy kid goes to, he's a valedictorian in high school that charges up to $38,000 a year. I don't know about you, but I didn't go to high school and had to pay for high school. I went to public school, born and raised up in Ohio. I didn't go to that, but he did. Then he went to what is an Ivy League school, Penn, University of Pennsylvania. There's a story here. I want to hear your thoughts on what you take of it. I have mine. I'll tell you what they are coming up in about 3 minutes on the other side of this. I also want to tell you some of the social media posts I've read through today because it's just very disconcerting and it's disgusting and it's a problem. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Kroc on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Jeff is the name, Westside Jeff. We're talking about the top story of the day, and that is the accused suspect of the killer of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. It's really set off a firestorm across this country over a lot of things, and that really makes this an interesting story that is going to have shelf life. This is going to be a story we'll talk about for quite some time because it touches all the bases of things that are pop culture and newsworthy and iconic that we deal with in today's life. I'm curious what your thought is. You've had a chance to think about it over the weekend. You've seen a lot of stories. You've read a lot about it. Love to hear your perspective at 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. That's on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Earlier tonight, not long ago, the Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, hosted a news conference around the arrest of this quote-unquote strong person of interest in Altoona. And there's a lot about this that really sticks out to me that you really kind of got to break down. This is a kid, the suspect, quote-unquote suspect, is a kid, 26 years old, who grew up in Maryland, a wealthy neighborhood, who went to an all-boys private school. I had to look it up earlier to see what that was like, and as I did, I see that tuition goes for as high as $38,000 a year. Now, I got to tell you, I went to a public high school. I went to public schools. Simple story. I was born up in the state of Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio, and I went to a Columbus City schools, just like Dallas City schools here. I was not privileged. My mom and dad weren't college educated. My dad was a plumber. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And then after the kids I was the youngest of five, and after the kids got a little older, Mom went back to work as a bookkeeper for a local small family-owned business up in Ohio. So I was, my sister was the first to go to college and graduate, and she got out with an RN degree. There were 5 kids. The first one didn't go to college. He went off to war. He was served in Vietnam and in the Army. He actually took a bullet, has a Purple Heart, had a really difficult time for 25 or 30 years. But finally, at about the age of 50, he straightened up and really found it, seemed like it, and went to a tech school and got a degree in computer science, 2-year degree, and did really well. Then I had twin brothers that were just a mess, a hot mess. I always like to say to my mom and dad that I swear it was supposed to be one baby, and in the last moments, they split the baby in half and gave one common sense and one of them nothing. Made one of them fat, one of them skinny. Gave one of them some smarts and the other one nothing. It's really odd. Then my sister was 4 years older than me, went to nursing school and did well. But I was the first one to really go to a school outside of nursing school and get a 4-year degree. I went to a place called Ohio University up in southeastern Ohio and got a degree in journalism in advertising. And this is a kid that they spent $38,000 up to $30,000 or so a year on a public K-12 education. Then he went to Penn, University of Penn. It's an Ivy League school. It's a very highly regarded educational institution, University of Pennsylvania. He's got a bachelor's and then a master's in computer science. He was part of a fraternity. The school confirmed he was a member. Investigators combing through all kinds of information about him and trying to figure it out. He posted on across social media. One of them was called Goodreads, social media platform. His name is Mangione. He shared someone else's take on the manifesto of the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. And that post, in essence, in part read, when all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. It's not terrorism, it's war and revolution. Now, that strikes me odd. Mangione said he found that post interesting, so he retweeted or reposted that. Now, authorities not identified a motive yet. They're still trying to, But we know that the bullets left at the scene were engraved or written on with 3 words: depose, delay, deny. Certainly a reference to the language health insurers use when they deny claims. Now today, United Healthcare, this is another interesting part of the story. Today at United Healthcare offices up in Minnesota, they put up a temporary fencing around their offices and stepped up police patrols. And all I could think about was, if fencing is good to keep people out and beefed up patrols are good to keep people safe, why aren't we doing that on the border? Why is it okay to put that around a big corporate office to protect their people, which I agree with, by the way? I think that was a good thing for them to do. Then why isn't the same tactics deployed on our borders? Why do we not do the same there? Does that strike you odd? That it's okay? Democrats have not come out and complained about that, by the way. Nobody's come out and said, you can't put fencing up around your corporate offices to protect your people. In fact, they pretty much encouraged it. So why is it's okay for a big bad corporate citizen that many in Democrat, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, many of the other Democrats, it won't take long, a couple days before they come out and start talking about big bad corporate society. They want the body to get cold before they go ripping on corporate entities, making way too much money and greed and corporate greed and stealing from people and not doing well and contributing to society. It won't take long before that comes out. But why is it's okay to put up fencing and borders around a corporate entity, but not our country? The guy they've arrested today kind of reminds me of some of the kids when I went to college at OU in Athens, Ohio. Some of the kids that came into that school from the East Coast. And I want to explain that to you in about 6 minutes. Got to hit the bottom of the hour news with Lori Waffenschmidt in the newsroom. My producer is ready to take some calls if you'd like. That's Garrett Tarango. We got to hit the news bottom of the hour with some updates on some of the stories I'm talking about. And on the other side of that, I want to tell you, this kid that I'm talking about, this alleged gunman, this suspect of interest, what they call, is something didn't go right somewhere along the line in his life. And I have a thought on that too. I want to tell you what that is after the bottom of the hour news. My name is Jeff. We'll be back right after the news here on News Talk, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. So the story today on the arrest of Luigi Mangione, it's interesting to me what sticks out, because in all, as you look at the story from the surface, this was a kid that was a product of wealth, elite schools, and had good relationships, social relationships. Hell, I read up on it all afternoon. People said there was one quote, a girl wanted to fix him up, I think, with one of her friends because he would have been a great catch. By all accounts, this kid was, this 26-year-old, seemed like a reputable kind of a person. My question is, at what point in time did the switch flip? At what point in time did something change? At what point in time, and what caused that to happen? That comes back to motivation. It's interesting. We'll find out more as time goes on, and I think it's going to open up a national conversation. I said this last week. I think this is going to open up a national conversation greater than just the killing of a UHC CEO. I think it's going to open up a conversation towards healthcare, and we'll continue this conversation. I want to hear your thoughts at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Kroc. I spent quite a bit of time today going through, reading a lot of reports, reading a lot of information, watching some of the press conferences, and a lot of things stuck out. First and foremost is one of the things that's trending across Twitter, X, is the term free him. And I saw something just in the last hour posted from one person that said CEO Brian Thompson was responsible for deaths of thousands of people. If he'd run a country instead of a company, his actions would be called genocide. Luigi Mangione is responsible for one death of an administrative murderer by proxy. He said, I won't call it a crime. Free him. That's the interesting thing about this story to me is as you watch this story, this manhunt for the CEO, the killer of the CEO of United Healthcare has met a real unexpected obstacle, and that is sympathy for the gunman. We'll talk about that in about 4 or 5 minutes also. So interestingly enough, a couple things stick out to me on this story. Number one is that this was a kid, by all accounts, when you look at this kid, I wrote down several notes, and I wrote down as you look at who this is and what we know about him, it reminds me, all I could think back to is this kid and this time kind of reminds me back, 8 or 12 years ago, to the Occupy Wall Street movement. Do you remember that, the Occupy movement? Because I remember watching the Occupy movement in CNN, MSNBC, a lot of media folks interviewing these people with masks and hoodies on, trying to cover up their face because they were embarrassed and ashamed, didn't want to go public, didn't want mommy and daddy to know who they were and what they're doing. But as you looked at them, generally those people that were part of that whole Occupy movement, and I'm profiling now, but as I profile, they were white, they were more male than female, they were 20-something-year-olds, they were highly educated and come from highly educated neighborhoods. They were, quote-unquote, privileged. They had a lot of the means that you and I, the average guy, don't. I grew up as a son of a plumber. I didn't have access to that. Highly educated, come from wealthier neighborhoods. I mean, this is a kid that went to a high school that tuition charged upwards to $38,000 a year. That's a lot of money. He could have gone to public school like I did, like many of you did, but he didn't. Mommy and daddy had to have money to put him in that kind of a education, and then he gets into UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League-ish school. Not too many guys. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm born and raised in the west side of Columbus, Ohio. Not too many folks from West High, not too many people that I went to school with at West High School went to college, let alone an Ivy League college. I can tell you from talking to some of my old teachers and stuff, none of them know anybody that went to an Ivy League college that I went to high school with. That was affluent. And for him to snap, it's pretty interesting. You got to ask, what makes a kid snap like that? Some other observations about this. Today, there were 2 press conferences, one around lunchtime, about 12:30 or so, with Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, talking about this person of interest. And it was a press conference he led, and he started, and he turned it over to the police and the FBI and various different agencies to talk about it. And that was, again, around lunchtime. Now, he's a Democrat in New York, former policeman, now mayor of New York. And tonight, just a few hours, just not a short time ago, another press conference in Pennsylvania. This one done by Governor Josh Shapiro. He's a Democrat, led the press conference moments ago. Now, what sticks out to me is this. These are 2 Democrats. I want you to think about this for a moment. Again, my name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock. If you want to weigh in, you can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff, or pick up the phone and dial 800-288-9227. Think about this. These 2 Democrats, Eric Adams, mayor of New York, and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, they were the leaders of these press conferences today, taken the credit for being involved with taking Luigi into custody. These are two Democrats using the story to project that they're tough on crime. Now, remember what we're coming out of the last 6 years, four years or so, and that is an anti-police movement, an anti-law enforcement. If you're white, you're privileged. And if you're black and you come from a poor neighborhood, then you're not. You're a target. Now, I've said all along, we are not dealing in this environment today. Our country is not a racist country. We're not a racist society. This is not black versus white. And the media, national talking heads in the media will make you believe it is. They will sell it all day long, that it is white versus black. It's racism at its finest. Now, this kid is white, so that doesn't come into play, but the Daniel Penny thing does. This isn't about white versus black. This is class warfare. That's what it is. It's those who have resources versus those that don't. It's not race. Don't believe him. It's not about black and white. It's not about race. It's about social re-engineering. It's about class warfare. Money versus not money. Rich versus poor. Highly educated versus not educated. That's the class warfare going on. And I'm one of those that on the other side of that. I grew up in a poor neighborhood. I grew up and went to a public high school, public schools that have failed a lot of people. I grew up in I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I ended up going to college on the backs of my mom and my dad, who went in debt, and me working my butt off a couple jobs trying to make it through and do it at a time you could. To me, this is interesting how these two Democrats, the mayor of New York and the governor of Pennsylvania, put themselves in the forefront of this story today by leading press conferences. And let me ask you this, and I'll talk about it on the other side. I got to hit the news or a quick break on the other side of that. It's about a 3-minute break on the other side of it. I got to ask you this question, and that is, when is the last time you saw a big press conference that got national media attention where two Democrats, Eric Adams in New York and Josh Shapiro, Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, took the lead? They went out front. They were the ones that introduced it. They usurped it, and then they brought in the police folks to tell their story. They went in with Superman capes on and said, "We did good," and trying to take credit for lawfare. When's the last time you saw that? Let me help you. You haven't. But you saw it today, and I think it's about the movement that they're trying to say, see, we are fans of lawfare. We are fans of law enforcement. But they haven't exhibited that over the last 4 years, have they? My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. If you'd like to weigh in, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. I want to get to some calls and continue this conversation about making it an issue of Democrats versus Republicans, lawfare versus not, in about 3 minutes. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. So authorities in the arrest of the person of interest, as they call it, of the murder of the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. Authorities are contending with a truly unanticipated challenge. It's now pouring popular sympathy for the killer. From online forums and social media to the streets of Manhattan, people have been celebrating the suspect as almost a quasi folk hero kind of guy who struck a blow against a detested institution, the nation's for-profit healthcare system. And one of my points on this, and we'll talk about it in about 15 minutes, isn't this, I want you to think about this, isn't this a little bit of a statement on Obamacare? I'll tell you more about that in about 14 minutes, just after the top of the hour news. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Now, a lot of things about this story, to me, I've said all along, this is like an onion. It's big. It stinks. There's a lot of layers in it. And as you peel that onion back, it's going to get stinkier. It's going to be a lot of layers to this. And this news is going to dominate the next several weeks. It's not going to go away. This event has opened an entire conversation, a door to a national conversation about the role of health insurance, health care, providers, and how it all plays together in our world. The social media posts are interesting to me. I just read a couple of those. I have to pull out a couple others, but it's stunning. I saw something today that was on a bunch. I went to a bunch of websites and I saw the story about, a lot of media outlets across the country posted 26-year-old arrested with a weapon consistent with the gun used in the killing of United Healthcare CEO. And I looked at the posts against those walls, and I saw comments like this. And I'm not going to name them and exactly where I found them because I don't want to, they've not given me the authority to do that. But I saw posts that said, my favorite was this, by the way. There was a woman that said, I know I'm going to get attacked for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Those of you condoning this man's death because of his job are evil and what's wrong with mankind. Call me anything you want. I would turn him in for no reward. Now think about that. Somebody actually went on Facebook, social media, and posted, and kudos to her for using her real name, saying, I know I'm going to get attacked for this, but I can't condone it, and you are evil for thinking that this guy is a hero. And like she said, she's getting attacked because some of the comments back to her were, the CEO killed more people than some of our bad guys out there, like Stalin, the Nazis, and so on. Here somebody said, how did he do that? One man murdered him. It's an organization with shareholders. The system is one of profit over people who heal. No human deserves to be murdered. That was a something in favor of finding this guy. Another comment said, I just said the same thing to my husband right before I saw your comment, that it's bad, you can't condone it, and you'll get attacked for it. Here's another comment that said, let's call it what you are, a misguided sinner. By your own faith, you were born in sin and you die in sin. Don't expect others to follow you in sin. When other people are preventing those who commit those sins, shame on you. Basically talking about this guy was a killer, meaning the CEO was a killer. He should go down himself. I was stunned at the comments that I saw. Stunned. He, amazing. Here's one that said, okay, who snitched? Because your snitches aren't going to be covered by your insurance company. Here's a comment from a woman that said, McDonald's worker called PD and reported. Hopefully they gave him $50,000 reward. Somebody said back to that, I'd take a lot more than $50,000 to me. Just reported it, but the guy should have been killed. It's stunning to me to see how pop culture, some folks across this country hailing the killer as a hero. We'll continue this conversation after top of the hour news. And I mentioned a moment ago, is this a statement on Obamacare? I'll explain that after the top of the hour news. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the story about the United Healthcare case. I'm going to tell you top of the hour news coming up in three minutes. On the other side of that, I'm going to tell you that this is a statement on Obamacare to some degree, and I'll explain it, my thoughts on that on the other side of the top of the hour news. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Kroc, the News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.